I'm Charles Roberts, the inventor of method shaving and Hydrolast wet shaving products. Today, I would like to continue our discussion that started last week, the last video we produced, on the subject of primers, which is central to the use of method shaving and the double-edged razor. It's a fascinating subject, but it is somewhat complex, and I'm going to try to make some more headway today in terms of explaining how various primers work together, what they are, and the different types of primers in combination to produce what we call the wet mix. I'm going to try to break this down as clearly as I can in the fewest possible parts. I think that those of you watching will find this to be extremely interesting. I certainly do. For those of you who are new to method shaving, this will be an excellent introduction to primers and their essential role in the creation of this amazing phenomenon in method shaving called the hydrogenic sac or the hydroplastic buffer. We'll cover that in just a few minutes. In method shaving, there are 4 different primers. The basic primer in method shaving is water. Water is the basic primer. So why don't we just use water when we shave? But we don't use just water for the simple fact that water is unstable. It is a primary agent, but it is not an independent agent. Water on its own, we cannot manipulate. We cannot, as we use the term in method shaving, we cannot fungify it. We cannot make it material. We cannot make it elastic. We cannot make it consistent. It is strictly an agent that is used to produce, it is a means to an end. It is used to produce a much thicker, richer media that we will then load with water. This is called the hydrogenic sac. Let's get back to water for just a moment. Water is the basic component of method shaving, of everything in method shaving. In essence, what we're doing in method shaving is we're taking water and we're reifying it. We're making it more exceptional, we're making it more powerful, and we're stabilizing it and thickening it in a way that will both allow the razor to move across our face and the blade to cut hair in the most efficient, closest, and comfortable manner possible. Water then is our basic component in method shaving. Water is our fastest primer. If you want to understand the basic operative principle behind method shaving, it is strictly this. We are using water and steel to cut human hair in the safest, most efficient, most comfortable and economical fashion possible. That's exactly what we're doing. And so we're going to take water and we're going to move that water through what is called a colloidal matrix, which is a series of stages through which we're going to thicken, densify, and elaborate that water for efficient cutting later on the human face. So water is our first primer. It is the most efficient, it is the most abundant, but it is also the most volatile. As our mix gets closer and closer to water, the cutting action of the steel blade becomes increasingly more efficient. And so we have the various levels of method shaving that a lot of shavers have achieved over many years, and that is an excellent method shaver, somebody who really understands the system and how to use it, will always try to cut the fastest media he can. In other words, by adding increasing levels of water to our mix, we increase the velocity of the mix. That's exactly what the term velocity means, and that's all it means. Velocity is strictly the principle by which we increase the efficiency, the cutting efficiency, of a mix by adding water to it. As we add water to it, we increase its velocity, its overall efficiency. So that raises, presumably, a very important question. Why not just load the mix with water and cut it? Why not just find a way to load the mix with as much water as we can and cut it? Simple fact is that by doing that, we run the risk of cutting too fast and too close in a way that we cannot control. So what we want to do is we want to balance the velocity of the mix, in other words, the efficiency with which the mix itself transports, moves, and contains water, deploys it in the shave, so to speak, along with the efficiency of the razor to cut. And this is called the famous V2 ratio that I elaborated many, many years ago in my book called The Systematics. That is the relationship between the velocity of the mix, that is, the amount of water we load into the mix, and the cutting efficiency of the blade. That cutting efficiency also obviously involves the relative personal, individual technique that the shaver himself can bring to the task of wet shaving. That efficiency of the shaver, the means by which his method, his technique of using the razor is such that it can cut that mix efficiently, depends largely on the mix itself. The more stable the mix, the more the richer the mix, the more infused with water the mix is, the more effectively that shaver can cut that mix, up to a point beyond which, if we load too much water in the mix, we run the risk of losing control of the blade at what we call the cutting glacis, which is the surface of the skin. So we have, on the one hand, we have water that we have reified, that we have made tangible, that we have put into, so to speak, a container called the hydroplastic buffer or the hydrogenic sac, and we are going to cut that media with a steel blade. And we're going to balance the velocity of the mix, that is the amount of water in the mix, with the cutting efficiency of the razor. And that gives us our V2 ratio. It's one of the most powerful concepts in all of shaving, and particularly primarily in single blade, double edge shaving. And that is the heart and soul of method shaving. Once you understand the V2 ratio, velocity and blade frequency, or cutting efficiency of the blade, once you understand how the two of those interact dynamically and complement each other, you will be a master method shaver very, very quickly. The next primer we have that is nearly as efficient as water is a product I invented years ago called Activator. And Activator, I get questions on Activator all the time. How do we use Activator? There's an endless fascination with this product, and I would like to elaborate it here for just a couple moments. Activator comes in an 8-ounce pump. And Activator it looks like water. It's a liquid medium. You notice it's got some bubbles in it. And it looks almost identical to water, and it seems to feel like water when you're first using it. However, it is not pure water. There's a great percentage of water in the product, but there is also a liquid buffer. I will not cover buffers right now, so let's just hold that thought for a moment. We'll leave the buffer part of this alone for the time being, because I'll cover that in a later video. But for the time being, think of Activator as a shaving media that is almost as wet as water, except it has been stabilized with the introduction of a small but very powerful liquid buffer. And what's happened now is we have the power of water with the stability that the liquid buffer gives it, so we have a much, much more stable primer. We're now we've moved one iteration away from the pure instability of water and its evaporative tendencies, which are very rapid, and we can't use them. We can't use water for that reason. But by using Activator with some water in combination, we get a much more stable, almost as fast a medium as we get with pure water itself.